sometimes put my thing on mute so I can vape. I'm obsessed
Hello,
with
everyone,
What?
and welcome to
Where did I get? Take two.
Welcome, everybody, to It's Our House podcast with me, Faz, and Chris, our co-host. And today we've got on with us an absolute British wrestling legend. But before that, Chris, if you want to say hello.
Hello. And we've also got Stuart.
Yeah, Stuart,
Our social media manager and producer and general dog's body, does all the hard work, and then we're just the pretty faces of It's Our House.
If that's what we can
Hello.
say.
If that's what you can call us, yeah.
So we've got an absolute British treasure with us today, and that is the legend who's laughing his ass off. Grado, welcome.
It's yourself. How we diddling this morning, troops? You all right?
Yeah, not
Yeah,
bad,
man.
thank
Great.
you.
Doing
good,
man. Doing good.
Thanks for asking me to come on this podcast.
Oh no, thank you for being on. It's a huge pleasure to have you, and it's a huge benefit to us. So thank you very much.
I know. I mean, I fucking hate doing podcasts. The only reason why I'm doing this is because Stuart is pals with Scott Brown's brother, and he said a favour. So this is coming even as a Rangers fan. Obviously, people who don't know Scott Brown is the Celtic captain, but this it's just a kind of. I suppose this is getting a wee kind of what do you call it for the Celtic fans? Aye, whatever. I'm being a bit of babyface here for all Celtic fans today.
Mate, you've had a hard week. You need to be.
Correct. No comment.
So we thought, obviously, we'll go through what you've done so far in your wrestling career. It's been pretty insane, especially from our point of view. You've done some incredible stuff. So we thought if you could just start basically with what got you into wrestling in the first place and your first wrestling experience.
Well, so I must admit, I was probably one of the later. I'll try and speak less Scottish here because it can be quite. My accent's a bit thick.
Hey, that's one of your questions, mate.
Aye, it's a pain in the arse. Everywhere I go, it's a pain in the arse. And this, even in Scotland, a lot of people don't understand me. So, because it's a thick Ayrshire accent. But anyway, so I'd probably say wrestling for me. I was actually quite late becoming a wrestling fan. It took me till I was about 10 years old before I became a wrestling fan. I used to slag everybody in my class for liking wrestling. And then I remember one day watching, I don't know if it was Raw, but I saw The Rock and I was hooked as soon as I saw The Rock. And usually what happens with me is even for a young age, if I like something, I've got to become obsessed with it. It's mental, right? It's like right now, I'm into planes, right? I love flight. I'm playing Flight Simulator. I'll all I do is look up Flight Simulator stuff. Crazy. For a while there, I was into Saddam Hussein, right? I would just constantly watch stuff about Saddam Hussein. I get so invested in stuff. I don't know whether that's some sort of behavioural thing, but anyway, talking a lot of shit. But I became a fan of wrestling for 10-year-old, and as I say, I became obsessed with it. I wanted to impress everybody in my class because I was quite late coming into wrestling, so my knowledge of wrestling wasn't as good as everybody else's. So I'd buy like Power Slam and like read names in Power Slam and go into the playground and go, here, what do you make of that Chris Benoit? He's all right, isn't he? Chris Benoit, he's all right. And what about RVD? Like I would just try to get into. So then I was buying the magazines, and then I became so obsessed with it that I started to, this is when the internet came out. I remember like the storyline where Rikishi ran over Stone Cold Steve Austin. I remember that was like right. Everybody at school was going on about that, and I would tell everybody how I read who it was on the internet. And like I also remember what I used to always do was, I don't know if you ever remember this, but there was a teletext. Can I remember teletext?
Yeah.
Right, I
love teletext.
There was a wrestling section on teletext, and you phoned up this number, and it was basically a guy on the Tuesday night telling all the kind of Raw results for the Monday, because at that point we didn't have Raw until the Friday, and the guy you'd phone up and go, "Welcome to the WrestleZone, the teletext service that brings you all of the wrestling news." And it was like £1.50 a minute, so I'd fucking listen to this thing for like a full 20 minutes while this guy gave the whole rundown of all the Raw results, and then I would go in on the Wednesday and spoil Raw for everybody, right? Then I got into like I used to message wrestling journalists and basically would you catfish them and tell them that I was a wrestling journalist, and I had degrees here and there, and then a lot of them believed me. So they would I remember the one time they gave me our Truth's phone number. At the time he was K Quick, and I remember going with my pals to a telephone box at the end of our street, and I had got my £20 pocket money, and I got it changed into £1 coins, and I phoned up the number. Now obviously the money goes down like this, beep 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 beep, because you're phoning America, but I actually got through to Ron Killing's answer message, and his voicemail tune was "I'm like a bird and only fly away." Remember that song? And so I left him a couple of voicemails and put on an accent. I told him I was a wrestling journalist. Anyway, one day I eventually got through. Hey man, how you get my number? I got a limit the overseas calls. Why you get my number? And I shit myself and hung up. But the funny thing is, later on, right? I remember one night I was sitting, because I worked in the fire brigade for 10 years in the control room taking the 999 calls, and that memory came up in my head, and I went, "Fuck, I'm going to tweet." Because at this point, I've got the blue tick. I was wrestling for TNA and stuff like that. I tweeted our Truth going, "I remember I used to phone you when I was 12 years old to pretend I was a wrestling journalist, and your voicemail." No, I think I wrote that first, and anyway, he kind of question marked it, and I says, "Your voicemail was I'm Like a Bird by Nelly Furtado." And he, damn, he right. It was fucking amazing. So I became so obsessed with it. I phoned every week. I phoned the Talk Wrestling show on TalkSport. Don't know if he's ever listened to that when he was younger. No, it was hosted by Alex Shane and a guy called Tommy Boyd, and it basically ran between 8 and 10 p.m. every night, every Saturday night on TalkSport. And I would go in there, and I remember one night I got cut off because I asked if Scott Steiner was on steroids. I used to come on and the impressions of Goldust, and I would go in and just the
he's an impression, Grado.
I think I went. I was scaring me. It was the point when it was in 2000. I think 2002. At this point, I can't remember what I'd done, but you know that way there was just like a total tumbleweed. And I was like, "Did you like it?" And they're like, "That's great, Graham. Okay, now let's go to." And just, they just used to fuck me off every week. But so one time I went on the show, and I was like, "How did I get into wrestling?" I was like, "I want to be involved, whether it be a ring announcer, and just setting up the ring. How did I get involved?" And Alex Shane told me about a show in Scotland called Scottish Championship Wrestling, and it was going to be, I think it was 2002. It was the 6th of February 2002, and it was at the Linwood Civic or the Linwood Sports Centre or whatever. And so he told me about that. So I Googled it and I found the website. I emailed the promoter and I said, "Look, is there any chance I can help out?" And at this point, I'm only 13. So he emailed me back and says, "Look, even at 13, you're too young to be putting up the ring and stuff like that. But come along, because you've shown a bit of interest. Come along. If you've got a ticket for the show, we'll take you around about backstage. Backstage being a fucking where cunts get changed." Oh, sorry.
It's over.
Sorry, backstage where wrestlers get fucking changed among people that are getting ready to get in the swimming. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't backstage. But anyway, I went to the show, and I was taking notes because I was going to provide a wee report for WrestleZone UK, it was called. And that was the show where Drew Galloway had his first match. And the memories I have of that show was that I'd say 90% of the roster were fucking stinking of BO, because I always remember my mum saying, "Oh my God, you can smell every one of these wrestlers." And you could hear them talking to each other. You could hear them calling spots. And I always remember I put that in my report that you could hear all the wrestlers calling spots and stuff like that. And then I got on AOL Messenger out of the blue, I got an AOL message from Galloway DJ Satan. And it was a message saying, "Could you hear me calling spots in the ring? Wink, wink." So it was Drew Galloway, McIntyre. And
was this the one that was on the network, on the documentary?
Say that again?
Was this the one that was shown on his documentary on the network? The 24 thing he says about his first match.
It was that show. Aye, that was his first match. That was it. Aye, because that was cool seeing that, because I mean, I spent that whole episode looking for me to pop up, fucking sitting there with my girlfriend going, "I'm sure I'm going to be in this. Without a doubt, I've got to be in this." And then the credits came and I went, "Yeah, bastard." But so I wasn't on that program. Anyway, but they showed footage of that. And so I kind of kept in touch with Big Drew and a guy called Red Lightning, Andy Wason, and we kind of kept in contact through MSN and stuff like that. And they basically said there was a guy training people in East Kilbride, and so that's, I think, in the June of 2002, I started going to wrestling training. Drew showed me my first bump. Within a month, we had the guy who took the training school was quite well in with Jake the Snake Roberts, and he told us that Jake Roberts was coming to train us, and we were like, fuck off, man, there's no way Jake Roberts is coming, because we were basically training in a post office warehouse, which was the weirdest thing. So it was like a post office, but then there was like a warehouse that they never used, or some sort of staff room, and they put down mats and stuff like that. Anyway, Jake the Snake Roberts came, and they spoke about this in the documentary, didn't they?
Yeah.
They did. Which was like the coolest thing ever, because at this point, I mean, it didn't feel like wrestling training. It just felt like, I don't know, like a shitty version of karate. Do you know what I mean? It was just like, only really, do you know that way? Like nothing was, because there was no ring, and like nobody was really wearing wrestling gear. Like it just never felt like wrestling training.
I think that's where Shane McMahon got the underground idea from.
Possibly the East Kilbride post office.
I think so.
Might have been, mate.
That's an exclusive.
Yeah, gotta be.
Exclusive right there.
That is, mate. It could have been. See how long that lasted. Has that not been fucking cancelled?
Yeah, it's gone.
Yeah, lasted like a month.
Because they couldn't replicate you. That's what it was.
You couldn't replicate us rolling about the flare in Lecoq Sportif tracksuits. Do you know what I mean? Fucking hell. And so Jake the Snake Roberts turned up, man. He sat with, I remember him going through like a bottle of whiskey and like a multi-pack of Mars bars and stuff like that. But I always remember him, like, because he did say, he was like, he lined everybody up, and he was like, the only person that's ever going to make it in this room is this guy here. And it was Drew, and I always remember that. And what happened 2 minutes after that as well was my ringtone, my phone went off. It was my mum wondering where I was, and I had managed to get, if you smell, it's my ringtone. I was Sonny, and he's getting this like mega serious like talk about wrestling. If you smell, sorry, can I answer this? It's my mum. Mum, I'll be fine. I'll be fine. I'll be fine. But what I took for that day as well is, I remember, because we hadn't learned like strikes at this point, and obviously as a wee guy, 13, 14-year-old, I'm wanting to know how you punch and stuff like that. And I was like, I remember going up to Jake Roberts when he was himself, and I was like, how do you throw a worked punch? And he just fucking went bam and punched me as soon as I asked, and I never felt a thing. And I'd say for a good 10, 15 years, that was the best feeling in the world, getting jabbed by Jake the Snake Roberts in a post office in East Kilbride. Nice. That's so weird. And so then I kind of, what happened after that? Like, so much stuff happened. Like, it was all just the Scottish wrestling crew. Some people went to SWA, some went to BCW. And I suppose I kind of, like, for a while, I mean, I used to, like, I mean, I wrestled in the SW. Do you want me to talk about my debut or what? Do you want me to keep going on here or what? Or is that day? Is that a good?
No, it's fine. You go.
I feel as if I tell this story all the time, but I got my debut in 2004 because I was getting trained by a guy called Conscience, and he said, I need a tag team called the Lowlanders. And he went, you and you. And he says, you're going to be the Dunbar brothers. And I was like, cool, man. I was like, I didn't care as long as I was getting a chance to wrestle. And he was like, it's going to be Grant and Glenn decide. And I was like, fucking hell, two worst names, Grant and Glenn Dunbar. So I was like, I bagsy Glenn. I bagsy Grant, because I thought to myself, Grant Mitchell. Do you know what I mean? It's about a hard man. Glenn's like a right old man's name. Do you know what I mean? Apologies to Glenn. Would you call him Progress? But anyway, because and I hated that, because it was like, you know, I'd everybody in my town knew me as a wrestler, and they'd be like, what's your wrestling name? And I'd be like, Grant Dunbar. I hated telling people that. I was like, I hated it. So for years and years and years, I wrestled as Grant Dunbar until I went to Magaluf and got a tattoo the side of my arm called Grado. And as soon as I come back, I went, well, fuck it, my new name's Grado. So that's how Grado was born.
Love it.
Beautiful.
Is that a good story?
Yeah, it's
yeah,
a great
man.
story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that a good story?
Where's the
Nothing
tattoo?
off?
Yeah.
Where about
Great story.
What? All right, so Matt, so by the way, I did a segment in every interview. I'll go. Anyway, it's right here. Hold on. You never seen it? I'm not getting my tits out. Hold on.
Go on, you can get them out. YouTube won't stop us on there.
Just imagine it's the end of the match. You're getting
Hold
all
on.
fucking hyped up for
You
it.
can't
It's
come
an angle.
off. It's a hangway. It's a big jumper.
All right, we'll let you off. We'll let you off.
So I got my Grado tattoo. It was like, so I get called Grado in primary 7, so I was about 11, and I get called that nickname for about 2 weeks. And I remember we went to Spain, and we were in Magaluf, and we all got chucked out of our hotel, and everybody started getting fucking the most random tattoos. My mate got like pride in Chinese on his feet. One of my mates got like all his nieces and nephews tattooed up his ankle, like just completely stupid shit. And I was like, put Grado on me. And so I got Grado, and then like the next morning, people were like, who the fuck is Grado? And I was like, me? And I was like, there's nothing worse than having a tattoo on your arm of your nickname, never mind a nickname that nobody calls you. So I basically phoned everybody in Stevenston for Spain, telling them, please, my new name is Grado, my new name is Grado. And then like all the wrestling boys found out about it as well, and they were like, Grado Dunbar. So I kind of checked. I went from Grant Dunbar to Grado Dunbar. And then it was around about that time I started doing YouTube videos, and I just called myself Grado, and that was thankfully the end of my run as Grant Dunbar, 2-time SW champion. I probably wrestled about 20 times in the space of 6 years.
Did you learn a lot in that time?
Did I learn a lot? No fucking really, no. Nah, not really. I must admit, I only really... So, like, obviously, I trained for 2002, and I suppose I started taking training seriously because I was still young at the time. And I didn't go to training as much as everybody else because I lived about, like, 50 miles away from where they were doing the training. So... I hardly had any matches, man. It was really only my character that was, because I had a bit of charisma, they would put me on shows, but I wouldn't turn up to training because I fucking hated training, right? But then as soon as I started doing my YouTube videos and it started to blow up a wee bit, it's like, I remember one weekend I realised I had like Friday, Saturday, Sunday bookings, and that had only ever happened once. And then I was like, then the next weekend I was Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and if the next thing you know, I was like booked for the rest of the year. So I was like, so basically, I definitely believe that I learned on the road, because what was happening was I was getting, because I must admit, for years when I wrestled as a lowlander, I was getting put in with matches with people the same level as me. And you only really learn when you're wrestling somebody that's got a lot more experience than you, that you can get advice from, that can show you ropes and take the lead. So like I definitely say my first proper year wrestling was 2012. And so I had the likes of Spud took me under his wing, Straight Maverick. I wrestled him in a singles match, and he showed me what to do. I was on the same shows at the time as Fergal Devitt, Finn Balor. I was on the same shows as Zack Sabre Jr. And so I was constantly learning every weekend. And I suppose that really is, for me, that I feel as if that was my first proper year. Even though I had won tag titles and stuff like that in the past, it just was... if I watched back the tapes just now, man, it was an absolute shit show. Do you know what I mean?
So from that, obviously, then you bled into ICW with Mark Dallas. So how was that pitched to you?
I believe there was it Book Grado up? There was a campaign going on for you?
Aye, but do you know what's cool, right? So, do you know the first time I met Mark Dallas was in 2002, and it was that... it was in that post office with Jake and St. Roberts, right? And that was the first day I met him, and me and him got the train home together, or at least we got dropped off at the train station together, and we were walking, and he was like a couple of years older than me, so I thought he was really cool, man. I was like, man, this is cool. And he showed me how to do like a handshake. I don't see that kind of handshake where you put your arm out like that, right? He showed me how to do that, man. I thought he was so cool. And he went, here, mate, I'm gonna run a wrestling promotion, mate. It's gonna be like ECW, mate. We're gonna have no rules. It's gonna be extreme. None of this family shit. I'm gonna book folk like New Jack. New Jack's gonna come for ECW, and he's gonna come and do this. And I'd be like, all right, cool. That sounds amazing. But I took it for a pinch of salt. Do you know what I mean? And it's amazing to think back now what actually he has done. He never got New Jack, but he got everybody else but. Do you know what I mean? Like all the people that came for ECW that he booked. And that was the thing about Dallas, man. Dallas, like I always remember Dallas telling us that we're going to do the Hydro, we're going to do the SEC, and I'd go, bollocks, man, bollocks. There's no way we're going to do that. And he ended up accomplishing it. And so the deal with Dallas was I'd say ICW started to pick up about 2011, 2012. I was like nowhere to be seen. I was still like doing SW family shows and stuff like that. But I was on the outside looking in, and I used to think, oh man, that looks so cool, because they had like a slot on TV. I think it was called My Channel and stuff like that. It was on at like 4 o'clock in the morning, and they actually he contacted me out the blue. Because I used to wake up every morning and I'd go, man, what do I need to do to be in ICW? I was like, do I need to take steroids? What do I need to do? I'd be like, I just wanted to be in ICW. But then he seen the Facebook videos and the YouTube videos that I was putting up, and he messaged me saying, how you doing, mate? Because he actually thought I'd stopped wrestling. And he says, are you still wrestling, mate? He says, I love your videos. Do you fancy coming to an ICW show? And we can do a couple of videos. It might lead to a match. We'll see. And I was like, well, of course. And so I did turn up at ICW for a show, and like this like it just blew me away, because at that time wrestling shows for me were like turning up at 1 o'clock in the day in this empty old dingy town hall, and like there was no camera. The entranceway was like a fucking fire exit door with a curtain. Music was done through like a CD player. And when I went to ICW, it was like, wow, like they had DJs and they had film crew and they had a doctor backstage, and I just thought this was the coolest thing ever. So I started recording videos that day, and I put them on the internet, and I'd done, like, as Stuart said, the Book Grado campaign, which like totally blew up, man, on Twitter and stuff like that. And then to the point where on the next show, like the show was starting at the garage, and the crowd were shouting ICW, and that died down. They were shouting Grado, Grado, Grado. This is before I'd even like turned up on the show. But on that show, I jumped the barrier and I had my first match in a 6-man. It was with Drew McDonald, the late Drew McDonald, who was like the coolest man. Have you ever heard of Drew McDonald before?
Yeah.
So he was like the WWE guy, the WWE's go-to guy in like the mid-2000s. He would get everybody tryouts and stuff like that. But he had been wrestling for like the 70s. He was like an all-world of sport guy, but he'd also wrestled in WCW. He was like one of Jericho's mates. He was muckered up with Robbie Brookside. He was the coolest guy ever. And actually, he came to a show in 2002, and I done a shoot interview with him because I tried to pretend I was like fucking RF video. I was like, so I done a shoot interview with him backstage in Grado Town Hall for like 4 hours, which as a 14-year-old was like the coolest fucking thing ever. And so then it was amazing because it kind of felt full circle debuting in ICW with him. And I debuted with him in that show, and then the reaction was great. And then after the show, Dallas said, we're going to do the next match we're going to have with you as a title shot against Red Lightning. And this was at the time Vice were following him a bit for the British wrestler. And nobody wanted to be in it. Everybody was like, no, they're going to make wrestling look fucking stupid. Like, they're going to make us look like idiots. I'm not interested. Where I was like, fuck it, come to my house. I don't give a fuck. I was like, please. I was like, come to my bit. So Vice followed me about, and it turned out to be the best thing I ever done. Because we filmed the Vice documentary. I showed them with like Triple H posters up in my bedroom, Steve Corino posters, just the random stuff. And then that aired on Vice.com a couple of months later. Then it just kind of blew up again with Colt Cabana and Sanjay Dutt tweeting about it, Matt Sydal and stuff like that. And it just kept getting, I don't know, it was just like it was like a snowball, just everything just kept going fast and big and getting more opportunities, and it was the coolest thing in the world.
I remember you with Colt Cabana. Sorry, I was it.
No,
you with Colt Cabana because you went to you were at ICW in the Fringe in Edinburgh.
Aye.
You won a tag titles then as well.
Aye. Colt Cabana was. I loved Colt Cabana when I was young. I used to like watch all his videos and stuff like that. And he tweeted Grado just out the blue, and like, he was like the first ever Yank to tweet my name, and I was like, wow! I just remember being going, fuck, this is the coolest thing ever. And like Sanjay Dutt was replying, going, he's so cool. Just seen the documentary and stuff like that. And then like a couple of American companies wanted to bring me over, and I just thought it was the coolest thing in the world. But probably what really helped me as well was being on Colt Cabana's podcast, because at that time there was no Steve Austin podcast, there was no Jericho's like.
There was no In Your House podcast.
There's the In Your House podcast. Cabana, this is before all of that. This was the olden days. And if you go on the Coke Cabana podcast, you know what I mean? Everybody started to take notice. So I've definitely got a lot to thank Cabana because he was dead supportive.
Talk me through this, mate. Sorry, but BBC Scotland, Insane Fight Club. You're going through to Fear and Loathing. You tell Mark Dallas you're going to Vegas instead, and you meet Goldberg.
I'd probably say meeting Goldberg was cooler than being on Fear and Loathing. I still, to this day, think that's the fucking coolest story in the world, man. I love it. And this was when Goldberg was still a bit of a kind of mysterious character because he hadn't came back yet. He was still just known as the guy in WCW. And obviously that we run in 2003. But so Dallas was absolutely raging because Fear and Loathing was booked at like a 1,400 capacity venue, and he was relying on people like me to sell tickets. And I probably found out about a year in advance that it was going to clash because I had booked this holiday like 18 months in advance, and it took me till about 3 months before the show to tell him. I was like, I used to fucking cry myself to sleep at night going, how am I going to fucking tell him? How am I going to tell him? But then what happened was the BBC started. And I was like, well, fuck it. Well, I'll just do it for the documentary. I can tell them now. And it actually made it actually pretty cool. You know what I mean? It made it just like that sort of like, I don't know, like, what am I like a sort of calamity fucking, do you know that way? They build me as this like fucking, just a fucking idiot. And that was like, you know what I mean? The night are going, it's just 3 months until ICW's biggest show. And Grado, the number one attraction, is told Dallas he cannot appear as he will be on holiday. It was ridiculous, man. And so they wanted me to film a promo when I was in Vegas. And I remember I was in the hotel and I was with my brother who doesn't really know anything about wrestling. And I saw Goldberg, man, and I swear to God, I shit myself. I was like, Goldberg. I'm a wrestler as well. He's like, cool, brother. Yeah, and I got talking to him and stuff like that. And I was asking him like the daftest questions, man. I was like, what do you think about Vince McMahon? Dick. I was like, will you ever be on the Steve Austin podcast? No. Right. Just annoyed him. But I managed them to get, I managed to get him to say it's yourself on a video. I think I said something like, Goldberg, who's next? And he went, it's yourself. And it was like the coolest thing ever, man. It was brilliant. But that was so daft, like missing that show. But I want to say that that's never happened again, but it's happened a few times where I've double myself for shit, and it's a pain in the arse, man. Total pain in the arse. That's one of the reasons why we fell out over TNA as well, because ICW would have shows booked 6 months in advance, whereas TNA would only tell you a month in advance when the tapings would be. So I was always put in that awkward position where it's like, right, so do I wrestle in ICW where I wrestle every month, right, and get the one kind of payday, which is no good. Well, no, I'm not saying it wasn't good, but it wasn't good as compared to, a lot of people thought we were all rich, the wrestling in ICW, wasn't it? We got more than what we got on other British wrestling shows, but it still wasn't groundbreaking. So there was, I had to decide, what, do I go for this? Do I tell TNA that I can't do it, I can't turn up, I can't go on a 10-hour flight to Florida, all expenses paid? Well, that's a lie, actually. I had to sleep in Jeremy Borash's hotel room flare. Do you know what I mean? Am I going to miss a week's worth of TV, getting all that exposure, getting that money for a show at the garage in Glasgow? Do you know what I mean? And it was quite hard for them to understand that, and I did feel horrible, do you know what I mean? I hated missing shows, but I mean, what are you going to do? Fuck, do you know what I mean? What are you going to do? Really, what are you going to do? So that was horrible at the time, the amount of times I ended up double booking myself. It was horrific.
I just wanted to briefly come back, sorry, Stuart, back to something that you mentioned slightly earlier about World of Sport. Obviously, that came to ITV, what was it last year?
2016 was the first time that they contacted us. Well, they contacted me.
So I was really enjoying World of Sport.
You're talking shit.
It's pretty short lived. It was all right. There was a few too many cameras.
Yeah, it was like watching it on a fucking speedboat. You got motion sickness.
What was it like working alongside like ITV? Because obviously you've done stuff for TNA and you've done Impact and you've done ICW. You got some stuff on the network, but did ITV sort of treat it like a big deal, or was it just
basically ITV? There was two guys at ITV, right? One of them was like Jerry McKayle's best man at his wedding, and he was in charge of the Jerry McKayle show, and he was also in charge of Judge Rinder and stuff like that. And him and another producer had went to a British wrestling show, and they were like, wow, I think they went to Preston City, and they were like, this is fucking brilliant. And they were like, we've got the rights to World of Sport. We've got like all that footage for ITV back in the day. And I think, so they contacted me first, and they were like, do you fancy coming down to Manchester to talk about getting a pilot on New Year's? And I was like, well, of course. So I drove down to Manchester, and they really didn't have the first idea about wrestling. They only knew what they'd saw at the British wrestling shows and what they'd seen on TV. But I went in there, and there was two guys, and they were like, right, how do we put on a wrestling show? And I was like, I stood up and I went, this is what you do. Match 1, we do this. We do this. Match 2, we then hit them with a tag team match and blah, blah, blah. And then the good guys go over here, and then, this is what we do here. And then the bad guy comes in here, blah, 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 blah. And then at the end, I win the world title, right? That's a lie. Well, partly, they did say they wanted to put the title on me. And I didn't feel comfortable being the champion, because I know I'm not a champion when you've got big 6'5" guys that look like fucking Adonises, and you've got me, pudgy, fucking pale guy that's built like a fucking jacket potato. Do you know what I mean? So, but everything was just dead exciting. I remember him telling me, like, look, find his wrestlers, and I did. I went out, and I was like, but it was difficult to try because I wanted to book all my mates. But what I would do is I would take my mates and I'd show ITV them, and they would go, no, he's not really got much of a character. He's just a man in pants. You know what I mean? For guys that I thought were great entertainers, but to them, they wanted all the flashy. They wanted, like, the big bad guy had to be a big 6'5", big fucking Smith. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was like they wanted it to be like the Gladiators, right? Yeah. Which I can totally understand. It was aimed at children, to be honest with you, I must admit. Even though the time slot was like 5 p.m, it was going to be out there. They wanted like the foam fingers. They wanted it to be like that, which I think we did end up. That is what it was like, and that's why, because see, at the end of the day, it always makes me laugh, because you went on Twitter and everybody buried it. But at the end of the day, right? See, wrestling fans are going to fucking watch it, whether they like it or not. That doesn't matter. You've always got the wrestling fans. It's getting the normal fan to watch. It's getting somebody that's not seen wrestling before. It's getting somebody who's flicking the channels, and they come across like a big, massive 6'5" guy in a mask throwing about a wee 7 stone guy, right? That's going to stop. You're going to stop channel flicking then to take it in, and that's what we're aiming for. Yeah. But it was funny because this was in like the middle of 2016, but WWE started hearing whispers about this, and then within a month they had made WWE UK. So. Because and quite right, do you know what I mean? Quite right, because you think about it, at this point, WWE's on Sky, when you pay money to get Sky, and here was ITV offering wrestling for free. Do you know what I mean? So WWE
made a big deal out of it as well, because remember the other thing, because they did get JR as our commentator for that as well.
We got JR as a commentator in for the pilot show. But then shortly after that, the WWE signed, and by the way, JR was a big backer. Like he was talking about it on his podcast. He was really, really up for it. But then the WWE just done what they usually do, and this is fair play. This is what they do. They're the biggest dog in town. But as soon as JR done the pilot episode, they poached him as well, and like they signed him to some sort of Legends contract. He would commentate on NXT UK. I mean, he done like 3 commentating jobs. Do you know what I mean? I definitely believe he was just picked so that he couldn't do World of Sport. Do you know what I mean? And that's what they done with WWE UK. I remember we had a couple of weeks to go before the first series, and we had Mastiff, we had the Coffee Brothers, we had Viper. Or did Viper, was she in the series? Maybe she was in the series. But basically, WWE poached everybody so that they wouldn't go on that show. They just wanted it to fail. And to be honest with you, they were successful, really. And getting and basically taking all the wrestlers, because it was like a total rush in the last couple of weeks to try and fill spots. Do you know what I mean? But it was, I mean, don't get me wrong, it was cool, but it's like funny because me and Shah, right, me and Shah Samuels, we just thought that we were going to be on I'm a Celebrity, get me out of here. We thought we were like, do you know what I mean? Because see, at the end of the day, it was like an amazing time slot, 5 p.m. ITV1. You know what I mean? Just before Ant and Deck, like we were going to be on Celebrity, come dine with me. We were going to be this. We really thought, and I actually the wrap up party at ITV, I spoke to a guy and he was like, look, if this goes well, you know, we're looking to get you in. I'm a Celebrity, get me out of here. I was like, fucking get in there. But the show started week 1. It got like a million views, which is amazing, by the way, because if you think, I mean, they pop the load in America when they do a million views, didn't they?
Exactly.
With NXT and AEW, we were getting a million in the UK, so like that was an amazing number. But the trouble is, it just went down and it went down and it went down and it went down. And also we had that sort of kind of carry on as well. We before it we had the deal with TNA, which didn't make anything, which kind of fucked things up as well when they wanted to run the show as well, and they wanted to bring out TNA guys like Congo Kong and stuff like that. It was just a bit of a nightmare, to be honest with you. It was a nightmare for me and Shah, I must admit, because it was a nightmare for everybody that was involved, but it was just so stressful, and it definitely I don't know, it just wasn't done right in terms of the camera angles and stuff like that. But it was still an amazing opportunity, and what was good about it, one of the good things that was good about it was we went on we done a World of Sport tour. You know how like they do that in X Factor.
Yeah.
Well, they have the X Factor, and then the top 10 finalists go on the road, and they do the X Factor tour. Well, that was similar, and it was probably about 6 months after the series, and we were at the shows, and we were like, "Fuck me, man! Like these tickets aren't going to sell." But they actually done really well, and when we went to the shows, it was amazing because all the kids knew all the storylines. They all know who to boo. They all know who to cheer. And like when we done like meet and greets after the show, the people were like, our kids loved it. They've got it on the Sky Planner. They watch it every day and stuff like that. So that was quite sad that nothing really that we couldn't get a series 2, because there definitely was a fan base. There was a market for it. It was like we guys getting into wrestling, watching it on YouTube and stuff like that. And it's just a bit of a shame in it, but suppose it was a good experience.
So you say that you're not world champion material. I'm not saying it because you're there, but I kind of disagree. But going to Fear and Loathing at the SECC and you're facing your partner you've had for all your career, Drew McIntyre, you win the championship, Mick Foley comes out and he gives you the lumberjack. What's that feeling like, Dell?
Well, I must admit, I feel as if I should have been champion that night, because it made sense, just because we had built it up for like a year, and it was like Drew had came from WWE and he had turned into a bad guy. Everybody knew Drew and everybody knew me. You know what I mean? It was funny because like it wouldn't happen now, but Drew would be like, I'm amazed. We would walk down streets together and folk would like see me and go, Grado, how's it going? And like maybe ask Drew to take a picture. Do you know what I mean? he was like, I can't believe how big the scene has got over here since he had left. But and obviously when Drew came back to ICW, man, he just turned it up a level.
That was crazy when his return was unbelievable.
Shit hot, man. That promo was amazing. It switched everybody on. It gave all of us a kind of platform to show everybody, because Foley was talking about it on the Steve Austin podcast. Everybody was talking about it because of Drew.
My understanding as well, but when Drew had the title, sorry to interrupt, but he made it the world title as well, because he went over to New York and about Matt Hardy, and that was it.
That's right. I remember that. That's right. I think because it was only the ICW Heavyweight Championship.
Aye.
And he took the belt away when he defended it. That's true. He did do that.
Because he held 3 at one point. I think Evolve was another one, I believe.
Aye, in Dragon Gate or whatever.
Yeah.
I think at one point as well, he had the TNA title as well. I'm sure he did. He had like fucking 8 belts. But aye, so I mean that night was amazing because we sold that SEC out, which was like 4,500, 5,000 fans, and we sold it like a month in advance.
Couldn't get a ticket.
Couldn't get a ticket, mate. See, is that the deal? You couldn't get a ticket, is that right?
That's it. I couldn't get a ticket.
I love hearing that.
Brilliant.
No, but it is, man. You just think, like, I always say we've done that without even having a Yanko on the show. Well, we did have Mick Foley and Rhino, but Rhino's Canadian, so that doesn't count. But and Foley wasn't a wrestler. But when you think about it, like advertised, like really the big sell was me and Drew.
Yeah.
And that was amazing. Just that night was incredible. And obviously when Cactus Jack came out and gave me his flannel, which by the way, I can't find, but it is a bad omen on me because I wore it in that match with Abyss at Bound for Glory, which was the worst wrestling match of all time. But it was amazing. The next day I went into the Foley flannel and I picked out $20. He left $20 in it. I was delighted. You know what? Hold on, fuck's sake. I've got the $20, but I've not got the fucking flannel. Fucking so annoying, man. But I loved that because I really did. I trained hard. I had a personal trainer. I was constantly in the gym and stuff like that. And when I watched that match back now, I'm fucking very, very proud of it.
Mark Dallas doing the Paul Heyman type 1, 2, 3 as well.
That was amazing, man. I love that video. It's just like it's always what I put on when I'm drunk and I want to impress my girlfriend.
So obviously, Korea, you've been a face for obviously the majority of it. So there was a time when you turned heel. In one of your, I'll let you get your headphones on. In one of your recent podcasts, you discussed that you didn't really take advantage of that.
I didn't want to turn heel, and I probably still regret it. Even though when I watch back the videos, it's I think I'm good at being an arsehole. Honestly, I like watching it back because we done like a UK tour, and I was like a bad guy in Cardiff, and at that time it was like, you know, the biggest thing that the ICW fans booed was TNA. They fucking hate that. Like they would start the show and it would just be fuck TNA, fuck TNA, fuck TNA. So I turned heel, and also they didn't find the World of Sports stuff cool either, which is understandable because they're like this underground fan base. And so I would come out with a suit and I'd go, my name's Grado, I'm the star of ITV, the star of BBC, the star of Impact Wrestling, and just everybody would go after nut, booing, fucking going after nuts. But you know, I was never really comfortable with it just because at that time, like, I still have to go to family shows where I make probably the biggest income is doing all the indie shows. You know what I mean? We only do ICW once a month, so it's like hard because they wanted me to like be a bad guy on Twitter and stuff like that, and I'd be like, well, at the same time, I can't really be calling folk assholes on Twitter because, you know, I'm doing the TV shows, I'm doing Scott Squad, I'm doing Two Doors Down, I'm doing a game show. Like, what game show host goes on Twitter and calls folk assholes? Do you know what I mean? They would just get buried. So it was hard for me to 100% commit to it, even though I did enjoy it. Like the night I turned, I did get goosebumps, like fucking like kicking Shan and stuff like that. It was quality, but I mean Dallas I turned up that night and I said to Dallas, I was like, look, I'm not doing this. There's no way I'm doing it. But Dallas has got this ability to just make you do anything. He's totally like, he just told me about how good it would be, and then you're going to be Hollywood Grado. Just imagine like Hollywood Hogan, you're going to be Hollywood Grado, you're the star of TV. And it did sound good, and it was good. You know what I mean? I did enjoy it, but I just didn't pull. I wasn't 100% committed on it.
Would you do it now?
Nah, because it's already been done now, innit? It's already been done. Can't really. Nah, I want to do it again. No, I mean it's plus it's also harder to work in the ring as a heel. Yeah. Because you need to be on top of the babyface for 75% of the match, and I've just not got the gas in the tank for that. I'm fucking blown up at the entrance, never mind in a match. Do you know what I mean?
So you're in TNA, right? Now you're Scottish, I'm Scottish, I've been in America, you've been in America. They don't understand us, and you said that even Scots, they understand you. So what did you have to do to change that? Because you done a good job.
Well, what I done was, when I first got there, it was like horrific. They would all say, man, I can't fucking understand a word you're saying, man. What the fuck? So it would take ages to like put matches together with people. So I just thought, fuck it, man. I just started speaking in an American accent. And that's what I done. It's perfect. I mean, I hate hearing folk, like, you know how you get Steve McLaren and stuff like that, the football manager who came back.
Of course.
Yes, all of that. Right, that does my bugs in. All that shit. So I basically just switched it to speaking American. I go, you come in, duck one, shoot me in the corner, reverse. I'll come in, you powder, and it made life 100 times easier. Plus, they thought it's weird, man, because right, speaking an American accent, can you do it? It's so easy.
No.
I'm
Go on.
not saying it.
He's a scouser. He's got no chance.
Yeah.
Come on, try it. You can't do it.
No, not on the spot. You push me. It's
Really?
too much. It's too much, Grado.
Sure.
What about you, Chris? This is your big moment. Come on, speak American.
Shit.
Say, I'm the
Give me a
heavyweight
line.
champion.
Give me a line.
I'm the heavyweight champion.
I'm the heavyweight champion of the world.
See? Fucking, that was good.
There you
That was
go.
Southern. It was good. But see, Americans, they don't know that we can all do American accents. And they were like, they were blown away that I could speak American. They would go, oh my God. You got to see this. Grado, speaking your American accent. I go, all right then. Hey man, what's going down, brother? They'd be like, oh my God, that's fucking awesome. How do you do that? I'd be like, I never let on that fuck anybody in the UK can put on an accent.
That's because of Friends. That's all that is, because of Friends.
Because of Friends.
Aye, because we've watched it for so many years, we get used to their accent.
Well, I was going to say
Yeah,
wrestling, mate.
All right, okay, sorry, we're on a wrestling podcast, I suppose.
But when I watch back videos now, man, and I'm like, oh, I hate it because I'm trying to do that, speak Scottish, but speak slow enough for people to hear, and it's so fucking cringy. But speaking American,
It's frustrating, eh?
what is it? It's frustrating. It's very, very frustrating, man. It's very frustrating.
Because we're closer to England than they are, and they can't understand us.
Oh, and another thing as well was they were giving me like stuff. They were getting like they were doing storylines where I was to parody like a 1970s game show host, and I'd be like, how the fuck would I ever know what a 1970s game show, like how would I know this guy? Like they would go, have you ever heard of this guy? He done like fucking Family Feud in the 1970s, and I go, no. I goes, for one, I wasn't born till 1988. Do you know what I mean? Like, how would I know this guy? And I'd have to do skits where I'd parody. I'd be like, how the fuck do I know this guy? Anyway, that was just some of Dave Lagana's writing, which is bullshit sometimes.
TNA, obviously, Impact Wrestling is riding like a massive wave of success at the minute. We've got loads of momentum, loads of buzz around it. Bound for Glory last night, great show. Slammiversary was amazing this year. But obviously, you were around in TNA at the time when, you know, things maybe weren't going so well. And there's a story out there, you know, how you used to get paid by check. You used to get your pay by check at the time. And what was that like? Because obviously TNA were trying to build themselves to be sort of like, you know, they were the big pretenders to WWE's throne. So what was it like being around TNA at that time with quite a lot of big names on the roster, but still with that instability and that, you know?
Aye, because as soon as I signed with TNA, and then like on the same day they lost their deal with Spike. and then as soon as fucking then I started, and then Samoa Joe left, and then fucking everybody. I ran everybody out of town. You know what I mean? But it was like crazy. But I must admit, like, so I remember I was signed at the start of 2015, and I was on like a monthly wage, and I was like, this is the best thing ever. Actually, first of all, I got a phone call from Bob Ryder, and he phoned me up and he went, you ready to move to America? And I'm like, yes. But deep inside, I was like, fuck that. I was like, TNA are on the last legs. Like, I've got a full-time job. I've got TV shows in Scotland. Like, there's no way I can commit to moving to America, and especially on the money that they were offering. And so I had said to Bob, I was like, look, man, I'd love to do this. It's my dream to wrestle in America, but I can't commit. I was like, is there any chance to see that monthly wage? Because what the deal was, you got a monthly wage, plus you got money for shows, you get money for each TV episode. And so I basically said, look, why don't we do this? Why don't we do, you take the money that I'm supposed to be owed monthly and you put it into flights, and I'll come over and I'll wrestle, and it'll just be like being like an indie guy, like taking my money for each show.
Yeah.
And he said, well, let me think about it. And he went, fuck it, forget it. You'll still get your deal, and we'll fly you over. And so I was like, fuck, that's win-win. I was getting my monthly wage and they were paying my flight. So I was like, get in there. But it wasn't until, so that was probably, I signed in at the end of January, and it was like, wasn't until like June. I was like, I don't think I've ever been paid after TNA yet. That's like, you know, right? And it was like Ken Anderson was like, have you been paid? And I was like, no. He was like, when did you sign? I was like, January. And he was like, you're owed such and such. And I was like, fucking hell. And so he managed to like, because I think at that time everybody was owed money. Like Bobby Roode was owed money, Ken Anderson was owed money, MVP was owed money. Everybody was just owed money. And I was kind of, I felt like, well, because they signed me in January, but they didn't actually start using me till like the May. So I felt bad asking for my monthly wage, even though that's a contract I signed. And I don't actually ever think I got that money for the first couple of months. But if it wasn't for Ken Anderson, I probably would have been working there for about 3 years without ever getting paid, because I'd probably too feared to say it. Because I was just loving it, man. Do you know what I mean? I was just, everything about it was just the best time in my life, man. And at that time I was still working in the fire brigade, so I'd basically work in the fire brigade on a night shift, right? Finish at 8 in the morning, go over to Glasgow Airport, get a flight in the morning at 9, get to Orlando about 4 in the afternoon. I would do like 4 nights of TV, and then I would fly back home, get into Glasgow Airport at 6 in the morning, and then go back and work 4 days in the fire brigade for 4 days. So I was fucked, man. And also at the same time, I was working in the fire brigade till like 6 at night, and then going to the indie shows if it was the weekend. So there was sometimes where I'd be away for like 2 weeks, just constantly just doing TNA, fire brigade, back to TNA, away on indie show, away to Germany. But you know what? I fucking loved it, man. It was the best. It was so good, man. I loved it. But I suppose, I mean, there was always something happening in TNA. There was always something. There was always like, we had backstage meetings. We had people moaning about money and stuff like that. I mean, see, to be honest with you, I just sat with a bag of popcorn, just fucking going, this is fucking tremendous. I love this. Because, you know, we went for having Dixie, and then Dixie left, and then it was Billy Corgan, and it was Jeff Jarrett, then it was Scott D'Amore. So there was never really, I mean, it's probably the most what do you call it? It's probably the most stable it's been.
Yeah.
And the shows are brilliant, man. I love it. I mean, there's a Rock debuting last night. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Love how everybody's saying the Rock debuted in TNA. It was a fucking video phone. You know what I mean? Fucking, it's a celeb VM fucking message.
It's a cameo.
It's a cameo. Fucking cameo. But I wouldn't honestly, but the TNA run was just the best in the world, man. I fucking cry myself to sleep every night because it doesn't happen anymore.
You had some people in the ring with you, like Lashley, Abyss, you know, you go on and on and on. You were in the ring with some absolute legends of the game.
I remember being in a 10-man tag with Jeff Hardy, and it all spilled to the outside, and I'm like, fuck that, man, I'm going for Jeff. Just to show, you know what I mean? Just to show my mates, I was like, fuck. Like, 3 seconds of me going, Jeff Hardy. But it was the best, man, and it was so cool, and there was like loads of surprises all the time as well. I remember one time they were going to announce in the ring who was like the new commissioner, and it was Bully Ray, and Bully Ray came out and stuff like that, man. I'm just a big punter, man, so I fucking loved every minute of it.
What about your time spent with Jeff Jarrett? How did that come about, and what was that like working with like one of the legends of the game, really, isn't he? Like, what was it like being embroiled in quite a personal, heated rivalry with him?
Aye, so Jeff was cool because he was inducted into the Hall of Fame, but at that point he was running Global Force Wrestling, so he didn't have the best relationship with TNA. I think TNA were trying to get a number by putting him in the Hall of Fame, and he came to the show and everybody was weirding about him and stuff like that, but he came up to me and introduced himself to him. Introduced himself to me, and then like the next day he says, and that was probably the best match I'd ever had in Impact, was against Eli Drake in a ladder match. And he like messaged me the next day and says, what's your phone number? And he phoned me up and he says, you're fucking great, blah, blah, blah. Keep in touch and all the rest of it. And I thought that was really, really cool. And then I think about 6 months later, he was back in TNA. And at this point, World of Sport was in between the pilot and the first series. And they were trying to get money for the series because they needed money for like distribution, where it was going in the world and stuff like that. And I remember speaking to JB, Jeremy Borash, who's like one of my best mates. And I was like, what can I do here? And he was like, I've got the perfect idea. He was like, why don't you get Jeff involved? He goes, you fucking scrub his back with an ITV deal to try and get him involved in that. And he'll probably scrub your back with TNA, because at that point my visa was running out. And visas it's a very difficult process, especially for a company like TNA. See, TNA to get an American visa, honestly, it would take about 4 months, right? But see, WWE, I remember Noam Dar getting his visa, and Vince McMahon could get a visa in fucking hours. It just shows you, man, that fucking muckered up with old Trumpy Boy and stuff like that, man. It goes a long, long way. I'm telling you. So I basically said to Jeff, I goes, look, World of Sport are planning running. Why don't you get TNA involved? And then he flew off for meetings, and I came and I sat in the meetings and stuff like that. And just because it was making a business. But then we spent the weekend with each other at WrestleMania, and I got introduced to his family, Karen, and he has 2 daughters, and Karen's daughter and Karen's boy and stuff like that. And we just went out for meals together and stuff like that. And I remember one Sunday morning, in fact, it was the morning of WrestleMania, we were meant to be going for some sushi. And I'm like, fuck sushi. I was like, where's Hogan's Beach Shop? Because it was in Florida. And he was like, you want to go meet Hulk? And I'm like, fucking right, I want to go and meet Hulk. Okay, let's go meet Hulk. So we turned up, and this was the best ever. Big queue outside Hogan's Beach Shop, who's like charging $250 for a picture. And Jimmy Hart's like, hey Jeff, in you come. So I come in, and like he's like to Jimmy Hart, I want to introduce Hulk Hogan to Grado and stuff like that. And fucking ended up being in Facebook Live, like. And then I met him and stuff like that. And it was just the coolest thing in the world. And then like a couple of hours later, the Sun ran with this story. Bulk Hogan, Grado meets Hulk Hogan. Grado meets Hulk Hogan in Florida. Fucking Bulk Hogan. Because I was standing there with my tits out. Do you know what I mean? Like in the picture. That was my first. As soon as I met him, for some reason I just thought to myself, get your tits out. As soon as I met him, I just taken off my t-shirt and went, look, I'm just like you. And Jeff got that. He can do it. He can go as well. Fucking hell, it was brilliant, man. Superb. But anyway, so Jeff was brilliant, and then we got involved in ICW, and then we done the ICW stuff, and then it was just a shame because we were supposed to, and actual fact, it probably would it have been cancelled this year. What would have happened actually? Because when was Drew? I think last year I wrestled. When did I wrestle James Storm? Was it last year? I can't remember. It was 2019. I can't. No, it was 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I was supposed. So Jeff refereed me and James Storm, and then it was going to lead to a hair versus hair match the following year.
I was 18.
But then Jeff Jeff ended up becoming Vince McMahon's right hand man. You just never, man. Honestly, like the saying, "Never say never" in wrestling is so true because you have no idea, man. Vince McMahon, Jeff Jarrett was blackballed for WWE, blackballed. And then it's amazing.
Fired on live television.
Fired on live television. Jeff held him ransom for money, all that stuff. Like they hated each other. And then the next minute, Jeff's in the private jet and he's his right hand man. And so he basically told me, look, I've told Vince that I'm supposed to be wrestling for ICW in December. And I was like, oh, what did Vince say? He says, no, you're fucking no. So that get kiboshed. But Jeff, we still keep in touch with Jeff, man. He's so cool, man. He's done a lot for my career.
So talking about the WWE as well, WWE and then Jeff. So Jeff got you to return to Shug's Party 5, which was a fantastic entrance, and we know that you are major on entrances. And you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
So yeah. So obviously the network, I've watched it numerous times. I think the entrance you do is absolutely fantastic, and in every occasion, the Madonna song, everything just works totally brilliantly. Network cut it. When were you told? How were you told? And what was your reaction?
Well, so first of all, I knew that it would never be shown because I had been through this with TNA because so I done the TNA tour in 2015, and this was like, I'd wrestled in America for TNA, but this was in the UK, and I said, look, you need to let me use my entrance music on the show. I go, you can dub it, but for the live show, I need to come out to fucking Madonna because I genuinely believe that a good portion of the crowd at that time were just coming to dance to Madonna. Do you know what I mean? Like, if I came out with generic music, man, they would go fucking mental. I says, look, just play it for the house, and let's see if we can try and get it on TV. So we done the shows. I came out to Madonna. Within a couple of days, I was signed because I was only meant to be on the UK tour. They were like, "Fuck, that reaction was amazing." And then it was getting edited to be on TNA for the first time the following Friday, and they were like, we're trying to get the rights to the song, and I was like, fucking get in there, man. And in actual fact, they had been speaking to Universal Music each day, and it looked as if it was going to happen. They were going to let the rights be used for the song, and then it was like 24 hours before it was supposed to be aired, TNA got an email saying the following request for Like a Prayer to be used, blah, 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 has been denied by, and then fucking the colon, semicolon, is what we call Madonna. And apparently, like, it was down to her herself. She decided that she didn't want a song involved in wrestling because apparently she plays a big part. She has the last say in where her music goes because, like, apparently she stopped a Facebook ad years ago for using Like a Prayer and stuff like that. So that was devastating, right? So I just knew, and then I think they had asked, because I think they were asking to get it for free, and then it was going to cost so much, so many 100,000 and stuff like that. So I just knew when ICW was in the network, I knew 100%. I'd get tweets, people, oh man, I can't wait to Like a Prayer, and I'd be like, use a fuck. There was no way that they're going to pay for the rights for Madonna, absolutely no way. So I did think, so I remember I was stunning in the queue at the Rangers shop for the new Rangers tap. It came on the network, and Sha phoned me and says, I've cut it completely. And I was like, what? Because I thought they would have dubbed the music. Do you know what I mean? I thought they would have dubbed it.
Sandman and Dudley's in that.
But I'm actually glad that they cut it out because I think it would have looked daft me dancing about. I know they've done it for this. I've not even seen it yet, but apparently in my match with James Storm, they've dubbed it rather than cutting it. But no surprise, it didn't bother me one fucking bit. It doesn't bother me at all. It generally doesn't bother me. It generally doesn't bother me because I knew it was never going to be aired anyway. And I'm actually I'm happier that they cut it completely so that folk would then go onto my Twitter and see what. Do you know what I mean? Because I posted as soon as it happened, I went, well, here's the entrance here and stuff like that. So,
I don't think it would have been the same if it dubbed over and Billy Kirk was still going, fuck Madonna.
Exactly. Look, they don't care about me, man. It's more hassle than they're fucking worth. Do you know what I mean?
Cool.
Yeah, so I think that's going to kind of wrap it up for us, Grado. I think obviously before you go, what you've achieved so much over, even such a short time in your career, what's the future look like, especially in the pandemic era we're in now? But have you got anything lined up? What's your future goals? Things like that?
Who knows, man? What the worst thing about this pandemic is it's fucking with my head because the last show that I wrestled on was Grado's Family Bash, where we ran a show at the Pavilion Theatre in Glasgow at the start of March, and it was the best show ever, right? Grado's Family Bash, like I'm going to say anything else. It was the best show ever. Fucking hell, what a piece of shit! But it was so good, right? It's just when I do my shows, because I'm into pantomime, I like it being just total entertainment. Like we have Chris Toll come out. Chris Toll was like 3 foot high, and I had him wrestling Crater, who's like fucking 7 foot and like 500 pounds. Do you know what I mean? I love stuff like that. That's my favorite type of wrestling. Total entertainment all the way through it. Anyway, leading up to that, I was resenting wrestling. Like I was getting fed up with it. I totally was getting fed up. But then the lockdown happened, and then I began to miss it. And I have been missing it, but now I'm going through this stage where I'm like, I see American shows are back running. There's some shows down south. Scotland's completely different. We are so much stricter than down south. I see that WAW ran last night and stuff like that. And that's good for them, but I have no idea what's going to happen up here. And it's horrible because I don't know. I just feel as if I'm slowly but surely going away for wrestling because I'm doing the radio every morning. I've got a couple of sitcoms that I'm in. Hopefully we get another series of my game show and stuff like that. And it's depressing to think, like, when am I ever going to wrestle again? And I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I've no idea. But it's depressing as shit right now because I don't know when the next show will be. I don't know. Should I be taking bookings to go down south? What's the deal? I honestly don't know. This pandemic has been an absolute fucking nightmare.
It's an absolute shit show.
But I have enjoyed my career. You know what I mean? When I was at school and my teacher would ask what I want to be, and I'd say a wrestler, and everybody laughed at me. Even when I started wrestling, I was built like a fucking sack of tatties, and people would say I'd never make it as a wrestler. Never did I think when I was in my early 20s I would get to wrestle on the same show as Jeff Hardy. Never in my wildest dreams did I ever think that I'd sit in a tour bus with Kurt Angle and fucking tell him that he was one of the top 3 cunts to lace the boots. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah. I saw you line that up.
You can bleep that. Do you know what I mean? I've loved it. I've loved everything about it. So I have. So I don't know. I mean, that sounds as if I'm going to retire or whatever. But I just know, man. It's like I'm not as over as what I used to be and stuff like that. And I'm happy with that, man. I know that if wrestling comes back round to what it was before, I'd get stuck right in and hopefully get involved with stuff. But right now, I just don't know what's happening.
I was going to say, to say that you wouldn't get over, to say you wouldn't get over is insane. As soon as your music hit, don't give me that.
Ah, well, I know.
Give me that, especially now.
What was better, by the way, Grado's Family Show or Lionheart's Grado Mania?
I'd probably say Grado's Family Wrestling Bash. Just because Adrian has died doesn't mean to say that my shows are better than his. I can't say that, do you know what I mean? No, but Adrian was the best, man. He honestly he was the first guy to put the World Heavyweight title on me. And
he was one of the best technical gifted wrestlers.
He was amazing, man. He was like the first guy back in the day to start getting paid extra money. He was the first guy that started dressing well at shows and having a wee bit of professionalism. He was the first guy to transcend stuff with being on TV and stuff like that, being on Big Brother and what have you as a wrestler. So he made a big mark on British wrestling.
You forget as well, he was in America for a bit as well, was he not?
No, he never done America. He never done America.
But he had a TNA. Did he have a TNA tryout or something then?
Yeah, he wrestled Jeff Jarrett at Bray Head in 2009. So he was one of the first guys to do that. Like TNA were never, or WWE for that fact, they weren't interested really in getting involved with British wrestling, and he was the first guy to connect everybody together. Mm-hmm. So if it wasn't for him doing that, then I don't know if I'd ever been involved with stuff in America, and that's been serious. But I would still say my shows were better than his.
Great. So, Chris, have you got any further questions for them?
No, I don't think I do. No, that's me. I'm all good. This has been a blast. I've had a great time.
All right? Has that interview been all right? Aye.
Yeah. You met him.
Yeah.
Grado, it's our first one and it's our best one yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It can only go downhill from here.
Plan for the next couple of shows?
Go on, Stu. Do you want to mention?
All right. Okay. So next week we've got Nadia Safa, the Welsh wrestler who's in the news just now for her Speaking Out campaign. So excited to have her.
Good luck to her, man. Do you know what I must say? Like I was, as soon as that Speaking Out stuff came out, I got in touch with a couple of politicians and they fucking just turned their nose up at me and told me just to contact the police. So I'm chuffed. Tell her that I'm so chuffed that she's managed to find her way in, because I tried up here, man, and they were having absolute none of it. So tell her good luck for me.
Yeah, well, obviously it's unfortunately a major issue, but it's something that needs to be voiced out for future generations as well. Also happy to say we've got Shane Taylor going to be joining us from Ring of Honor, and Mr. Billy Kirkwood has agreed to come on as well. Good, one of your friends.
Oh, he's the man. Honestly, he is the voice at ICW, man, and he is so funny, by the way, because what you don't actually see is Billy comes out. I don't know if you've seen it, Stuart. He comes out and he warms the crowd up, man, and it's fucking hilarious, man. He's shit hot. So tell Billy I was asking for him as well.
Well, too. For me, I've got to say, first of all, Grado, thank you so much for taking the opportunity and time to speak with us, especially being our first guest. So you kind of walked into no idea what this was going to be like. So thanks for doing that. From me as well, I've got to say a big thank you to Old School Wrestling for their Facebook page. They've been a great supporter with ourselves as well. They've been promoting what we've got going on, and hopefully we can be doing that again in the future. So anyone that wants to look at some nostalgic stuff, anything like that on Facebook, Old School Wrestling, that's where to go. That is a superb page to be. I've been following it for years, so thank you for them. Really much appreciated. Fraser, well done, mate. You were good, mate. You've conducted it very well. I've jumped in. I'm not gonna lie. You knew it was going to happen anyway.
Exactly. We did say. Yeah. There's no risk.
I've enjoyed myself.
Dude, I've even got my Wrestling Bass t-shirt on, by the way.
What does that say? I'm a mark. Oh, get in there, man.
I was gonna get the. I'm gonna take a bump for you, but
I'm gonna take a bump for you.
Wonky Top Man, by the way. For those who
fucking hell, man! I can't believe people are buying any t-shirts. Get in there, mate. I appreciate that.
No worries, man. I've got my ICW one, but I'm leaving that for Billy Kirkwood.
Aye, leave that for him. Cool. Yes. Right, I better boost. I need to go to this communion, right? I'll talk to you later, right? Thanks for having me on, right?
See you, mate.
Take care.
You're the one
Take care. See you later. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Right, that was great. We had Grado.
That was awesome.
That was such a good interview. He can talk the house down as well, can't he? I mean, what a legend. What?
Made our life a lot easier.
What a legend. Thanks so much for sorting that out, Stu. That's just, you know what I mean,
That's what I'm here for.
top level
That's what
type
I'm here
thing. So yeah, so that's us. Just remember to obviously go to bodyslam.net for all your news and breaking stories, editorials, opinion pieces, that type of thing. Chris, if you want to tell them where to follow you on Twitter.
At PWCDs, that's me.
Stu,
where are you at?
At slawson1417.
Yep, and then obviously we've got the It's Our House Pod. That's on Twitter. We're also on YouTube. We're on all the major platforms. If you go to the description down below, you'll see every podcast that we're currently signed up to, and also give us a subscribe, like, share, tell your friends, all that stuff. We've got some huge guests coming up, as Stu mentioned before. Obviously, you can follow me at Fazza's Thoughts. That's FAZZAS Thoughts. But yeah, it's been a pleasure, guys. I've loved seeing your beautiful faces. Don't shave that beard ever, Stu.
Perfect.
It's growing.
Perfect.
Chris, grow a beard, and we can be the beard bros.
I'm trying. There's nothing there, mate.
That's
Just
3 weeks
fluff.
since he's had a shave, by the way. 3 weeks.
It's been more than that, honestly. Months. Bum fluff, man. I hate it. It comes out ginger as well. Let's not talk about this. It upsets me.
Awesome.
I didn't know where your t-shirt finished and your beard started. That's
So yeah, cheers, guys. Yeah, subscribe, give us a thumbs up, all that stuff. It's been a pleasure, and we'll see you next week for our next interview. Cheers, guys.
Yeah, after. Thank
Peace
you.
out.